Am I the a-hole for cutting off my entire family after discovering my brother has been gaslighting me for years and stealing my identity? I'm 31F, and this has been building up for a long time, but I only recently connected the dots. My family has always seemed normal on the surface. I grew up with my parents and one younger brother, Max, who's 28. For most of our lives, we had the typical sibling rivalry, annoying but manageable. Except lately, things felt off. Max has always been a bit charming, but over the past decade, I've noticed weird incidents where things would go missing, or I'd get weird looks from people who knew me but acted like they'd never met me. It started small. Someone borrowing my clothes without asking, using my social media accounts when I was out of town, and even pretending to be me on some online platforms to flirt with people or post weird stuff. I chalked it up to annoying sibling behavior until one day I found my credit report frozen after unauthorized loans were taken out in my name. I confronted Max multiple times. He denied it, called me paranoid, and made me question my own sanity. My parents brushed it off as sibling pranks gone too far, telling me to just let it go for family peace. But I didn't let it go. One night, I stayed up digging through old messages and discovered that Max had been systematically manipulating everyone around me for years, messaging my friends pretending to be me, convincing my boss I was unprofessional, even sabotaging my personal relationships by spreading lies. Then I found something even worse. Fake documents showing he legally changed his name to mine years ago in another state, opening bank accounts, credit cards, and even a small business, all under my identity. I finally confronted him with the proof. His response was chilling. He said he was tired of living in my shadow, and this was his way of finally taking control. I cut all contact immediately and went public with the case, reported him to the police and lawyers. Now, my parents are furious at me for exposing family secrets and destroying Max's life. They say I'm being cruel and that I should forgive and forget because he's family. They accuse me of tearing the family apart over petty jealousy. I'm devastated, isolated, and financially drained from fighting to reclaim my identity. So, am I the a-hole for cutting off my entire family and taking legal action against my brother to protect myself? Am I the a-hole for confronting my mom after discovering she faked my dad's death to steal his inheritance? I'm 38F. My story begins with my dad's death 10 years ago, a death that shattered my world and apparently was a lie. Growing up, my dad was my hero. He was funny, warm, and loving, the kind of dad who made everyone around him feel safe. My mom was quieter, colder, but I never thought much of it. They seemed like a unit, even if a little distant at times. Then, when I was 28, my dad died in a car crash, or so I was told. It was sudden and devastating. The funeral was packed. Mom was stoic but strong, holding the reins of everything. She inherited everything: the house, the savings, the business he'd built from nothing. It felt natural, the way it was handled, except that wasn't the end of it. 2 months ago, I was clearing out old files on my dad's laptop, which Mom had given me after she found it during renovations. I stumbled on an encrypted folder that wouldn't open with any passwords we'd ever used. Curious, I hacked it open using skills I'd picked up at work. I'm in IT. What I found shocked me. Videos, emails, and documents proving my dad was alive for years after the supposed crash. There were messages from him to a friend dated 5 years after his death announcement. The videos showed him in hiding, sick but alive, saying he was forced into silence because she was hunting him. I confronted my mom. She didn't deny it at first, just gave me that cold, unreadable look. Then the story spilled out. Mom told me my dad hadn't died in a crash at all. They'd had a huge fight over money and control of the business. She'd secretly hired someone to fake the accident, to make it look like he'd died. The plan was to cut him out and take everything. She said she did it for the family, to protect me and my brother from a bitter divorce and the ruin she believed he was headed for. I was horrified, furious, betrayed. But it got worse. She told me my dad had gone underground, living in a tiny apartment in another state. She'd been sending money to keep him silent, threatening to ruin him if he ever surfaced. I asked why she never told me or my brother. She said, "Because you wouldn't understand. You're too young to bear this." I'm 38. I told her it was murder. Murder of a man's life, his identity, his family. She laughed and called me naive. Now my brother wants nothing to do with me because I threatened to go to the police and reopen the case. Mom says I'm destroying the family legacy. She says I'm tearing apart the family for revenge. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Am I the a-hole for confronting my mom and wanting to expose what she did? Am I the a-hole for refusing to forgive my dad on his deathbed after he revealed what really happened to my mom? My father died last week. The funeral was yesterday. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I didn't stand up and tell a room full of mourners what a great man he was. I just sat in the back in silence, letting everyone else wear black and lie to themselves. I was the only one who knew the truth, a truth he whispered to me 3 days before he died, like a man passing a bomb, just before it explodes. And now I'm left with the pieces, the shame, the rage, and the question, am I the a-hole for not forgiving him? Let me back up. My name is Joel. I'm 36. I grew up in a house that always felt a little off. You know those families where everything looks picture perfect on the outside, neatly trimmed lawn, warm dinners, Christmas cards, polite smiles, but inside, it's all eggshells and quiet dread? That was us. My mom, Catherine, was light. That's the word I always used. She lit up rooms, she made people laugh, she was a nurse, and I swear she saved more than lives. She saved the air in a room. My dad, Malcolm, was the opposite. He was cold, calculated, distant. Military man, retired early, ran a tight ship. Discipline over affection. Expectations over empathy. When I was 9, my mom died. They said it was a car accident, that she swerved on black ice and hit a tree, died instantly. I remember the funeral like a foggy nightmare. I remember how quiet my dad was, how he didn't cry, didn't speak. He just stood there, one hand on my shoulder, like he was bracing me for a storm he was already past. After that, things got darker, colder. My dad never remarried, never dated. He raised me with military precision, grades, behavior, posture. No nonsense, no softness, and no mention of my mother. Ever. It was like she had been surgically removed from our lives. Her photos were gone within a month. Her clothes boxed up. Her name was a forbidden word. When I asked questions, he'd say, "She's gone. Let it lie." So I let it lie, but I never stopped feeling the hole. In college, I tried to find her old friends. Everyone said the same thing. She was too good for him. She wanted to leave. I heard whispers about divorce, about affairs, about fights. One person said she was scared of him. I didn't want to believe it. I thought it was grief making people rewrite memories. I clung to the story of the accident because the alternative, that my dad had hurt her or driven her to something worse, was too much. I went low contact after college. I got married, had a daughter, tried to build the kind of home I never had. I didn't want my kid to grow up with secrets. Then 3 weeks ago, I got a call from a hospice nurse. My father was dying. Cancer. Stage 4. He hadn't told anyone. Just checked himself in and waited. She said he asked for me. I hesitated. My wife said, maybe he wants to make amends. So I went. He looked like a ghost. Sunken eyes, gray skin, tubes everywhere. He barely looked human. But his voice was the same. Sharp, controlled, like every word was a command. "Joel," he said, "I need to tell you something before I go." I sat. I expected a will, or an apology, or maybe a list of regrets. What I got was a confession. He said, "Your mother didn't die in a car accident. She killed herself." I stared at him. He went on, "I made it look like an accident. For you. So you'd have something clean to hold on to." I couldn't breathe. He said she'd been planning to leave him, that she'd fallen in love with someone else, that she wanted custody of me, that she was going to expose him for things he didn't elaborate on. He said he confronted her. They fought. She took pills and vodka, went to the garage, started the car, and he let her. She passed out, and he turned on the ignition and locked the garage. Then he called in a contact from his military days, someone who knew how to clean things up. They put her in the car, staged the accident, and erased the rest. He said it like he was reading the weather. No emotion, no guilt, just facts. "I protected your future," he said. "You would have hated her if you knew the truth." I was shaking. I asked him why. "Why now? Why tell me?" He said, "Because I need you to forgive me." I laughed. I couldn't help it. I laughed like a man losing his mind. I asked, "Is this a joke?" He said no. He said he was sorry, that he'd carried it for 27 years, that he'd done what he thought was best, that he needed peace, that I was the only one who could give it to him. I stood up, told him I would never forgive him, that he murdered my mother, that I hoped he rotted, that I'd name her again, put her photos back up, tell my daughter about the grandmother she never got to meet, the one he took from her. He looked away, said, "You'll understand when you're older. I'm 36. I left." He died 3 days later. At the funeral, everyone praised him. decorated veteran, loving father, pillar of the community. I sat in silence, clenching my fists. My wife said I should have said something, that I should have exposed him. That silence makes me complicit. But I couldn't do it. I didn't want to destroy my last memory of my mom by turning her death into a spectacle. I didn't want my daughter to remember this day as the one where Grandpa became a monster, but now I feel like I'm choking on the silence. His estate is being transferred to me. His lawyer said he left everything to me, a big house, money, investments. I don't want any of it. My wife says we should use it for our daughter's future, a college fund, a house, something good. But I can't touch it. It feels like blood, money. I keep seeing his face, that calm, cold face, asking for forgiveness like it was owed to him, like I was some priest and he was buying salvation, and I said no. So now I'm here. Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to forgive my dad on his deathbed after he revealed what really happened to my mom? Am I the a-hole for reporting my sister for identity theft after I discovered she'd been living as me in another state for nearly a decade? I, 34F, never imagined I'd be writing this, let alone asking strangers to help me figure out if I've completely lost my moral compass. Because right now I'm questioning everything. My family, my sister, myself. I'm not even sure where to start because I feel like I've been living in a simulation for the last 10 years, and someone just pulled the plug. I have a sister. Technically, her name is Bella. She's 32. We were close growing up, so close in fact that people used to joke we were twins. We looked similar, we had similar voices, and we even finished each other's sentences. But we were also opposites. I was the quiet one, the overachiever, straight A's, never caused a scene. Bella was the wild one, charismatic, dramatic, the kind of person who could lie to your face and make you thank her for it. When we were kids, I covered for her a lot. She'd steal something from a store and I'd distract the clerk. She'd break our parents' rules and I'd take the blame. I thought I was being a good sister, that I was protecting her. But in hindsight, I think she was training me, testing how far I'd been before I broke. Things got worse in high school. She started using drugs, pills mostly, but sometimes worse. She'd disappear for days. She'd steal from our parents, then from me. When she stole my laptop and sold it for cash, I finally snapped. I told my parents I was done. I locked my bedroom door and started saving for college just to get out of that house. Bella dropped out at 17 and left. I didn't see her again for almost 2 years. She'd resurface every now and then. An occasional email, a collect call, a "hey, I'm fine" text. But nothing lasting. Meanwhile, I went to college, got my degree in psychology, and started working in early childhood education. I moved to a small town in Oregon, got a job at a learning center, and eventually started dating a guy named Alex. We got married when I was 27. I sent Bella an invite, but she never responded. At that point, I figured she didn't want to be part of my life, and honestly, that was fine with me. Flash forward to 3 months ago, I got a letter from the IRS. It said I owed taxes on income from a catering business in Colorado. I've never lived in Colorado. I've never worked in catering. I thought it was a scam, so I called the number. Long story short, after a very long series of phone calls, I discovered that someone using my name and social security number had been operating a registered business in Colorado for 9 years. At first, I thought it was identity theft by a stranger. I filed a report, froze my credit, spoke with a lawyer, but the deeper we dug, the stranger it got. The address on the business registration matched a residential home. I looked it up. Zillow, Street View, normal-looking place. I couldn't shake the feeling, so I booked a flight. I didn't tell Alex, I just told him I needed a solo trip to clear my head. I flew to Colorado, rented a car, drove to the address, knocked on the door, and Bella answered. But it wasn't just that she answered. She answered and said, "Can I help you?" Like she'd never seen me before in her life. She looked just like me, same haircut, same way of speaking. She was wearing a name tag that said Emily, my name. I stood there frozen. She looked panicked, like a mask had fallen off. I said, "Bella, what the hell is going on?" She grabbed my arm, dragged me inside, shut the door, and immediately launched into a hysterical, rambling explanation. She said she was desperate, that she needed a fresh start, that when she found my college acceptance letters and financial aid info years ago, she realized she could use it to build a life, because I had a life worth living. She said she used my identity to get an apartment, then a job, then another job. She claimed it snowballed, that once people knew her as Emily, she couldn't turn back. She said she was sorry, but she also said, "You have your life." "I'm not hurting anyone, I'm just borrowing what you didn't need," I exploded. I asked how she thought this wouldn't eventually ruin me. She shrugged, said she thought she'd clean it up before I noticed, that she was going to pay the taxes soon, that she never meant for it to go this far. I walked out. When I got back to Oregon, I filed a formal police report. My lawyer sent her a cease and desist. The cops said she may face criminal charges for fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft. A warrant was issued last week. My parents are livid, but not at her. At me, they say I should have kept it in the family. That Bella is clearly mentally unstable. That I should have helped her instead of destroying her. My dad said, "You've always been the strong one. You could afford to let this slide." My mom cried and begged me to drop the charges. Alex is unsure. He said he gets why I'm angry, but that jail time might be too much. He said, "What's the point of justice if it just ends up hurting both of you? I don't know anymore. I thought I was the victim, but now I feel like I'm being painted as a villain, for defending myself, for wanting my name, my future, my identity back. I've been getting hate mail, anonymous texts. Someone even put a note on my car that said, 'Cold-hearted Beach.' Bella's facing possible jail time. My parents have gone no contact with me. They said I betrayed the family. I haven't slept in weeks. My credit is still frozen. My career might be in jeopardy if this gets more public. And through it all, I keep wondering, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for revealing that my daughter is actually my sister? At her wedding? I didn't expect to end up the villain in a story that began with trying to do the right thing. I didn't expect to stand in front of 150 wedding guests and detonate a secret that had been eating me alive for years. I didn't expect to watch my daughter collapse in tears as the man she loved walked away in disbelief, but I did it. I told the truth, and now the world sees me as a monster, a liar, a narcissist, but I'm going to lay it all out here, every ugly, rotting piece of it, and you can decide for yourself. Was I wrong, or was I just the first person to finally say it? My name is Evelyn. I'm 42 years old. I raised a girl named Lily, who everyone believes is my daughter, and biologically, she is. But that's not the whole story, because she didn't grow up calling me Mom. She grew up calling me Eve. I was her sister. Until I wasn't. It started when I was 17. I had a reputation in high school, straight A student, theater geek, a little awkward. But I had one wild night, one stupid, careless, drunken night with a guy I barely knew, and I got pregnant. My parents were devastated. They were the kind of people who lived for appearances. Sunday church, perfect lawn, country club dinners. My father was an attorney. My mother was PTA president. And here I was, about to turn their Christmas card into a scandal. They gave me two options: abort the pregnancy or go live with Aunt Meredith in Colorado for a while, which was code for disappear until you give birth, then come back like nothing happened. I refused to terminate, not for any noble reason. I was just scared and stubborn. So I got sent away. Meredith lived in a small, snowy town and didn't ask questions. I gave birth to Lily in the middle of February, scared and alone, bleeding, and crying and feeling like the world had ended. My parents flew in for one night, held her, took a photo, then told me to go home and start over. They were going to raise her as my sister. At first I refused, but they threatened to cut me off, throw me out, tell everyone I was unstable. My father said if I insisted on playing Mom, he'd make sure I never saw her again. So I agreed. I came back home in the spring and pretended it had all been a mental health break. People believed it. My school counselor gave me a hug and told me I looked refreshed. And then, in a picture-perfect nursery upstairs, was Lily, my daughter, in my mother's arms, wearing a frilly pink onesie and a plastic hospital bracelet. "Your sister," they reminded me. "Don't forget, I raised her in my way. I fed her bottles while my mother gossiped on the phone. I sang to her at night when she wouldn't sleep. I taught her to read. I went to every recital, every play, every parent-teacher conference. My mother would send me in her place. People started saying I was such a good big sister. But she was mine. I felt it in my bones every time she said, "Eve, look," or clung to me when she was scared. By the time she was 5, she preferred me over my mother. My parents hated that. My mother became colder. My father lectured me constantly about boundaries. But they never let me claim her. I begged them when she turned 10. "Let me tell her," I said. "She deserves to know the truth." My father looked me in the eye and said, "You will destroy her identity. Do you want her to hate you?" So I stayed silent until she turned 16. That year, she came home from school crying. Said a girl told her she was adopted, that she looked nothing like our parents, that she looked just like me. She was shattered. I asked my parents to come clean. They refused. They doubled down. My mother slapped me when I pushed the issue. My father threatened to take Lily away. "She's legally ours," he reminded me. "Try anything and you'll lose her forever." So I stayed. Watched her grow up. Watched her fall in love. A nice boy named Marcus, sweet, gentle, kind. He came from a good family. She started planning her future, law school, marriage, babies. I watched the life she was building and felt like I was dying inside. She deserved to know. She was 22, an adult, and she still had no idea that everything she believed about her life was a lie. I confronted my parents again, told them I'd give them one last chance to tell her the truth. They told me I was being selfish, that I wanted to steal her thunder, because I was jealous, that I was mentally unstable and obsessed with her. My mother said if I tried to talk to her before the wedding, she'd file for a restraining order. My father said I'd never see her again, so I waited. And on her wedding day, just after the speeches, I stood up and told the truth. I stood in front of 150 people, looked at her in her white dress, glowing and beautiful and utterly happy. And I told her that I was her mother, that I gave birth to her, that our parents had forced me to give her up and live a lie, that I hadn't told her before because I was terrified of losing her, that I loved her more than anything. And I was sorry, but she deserved to know who she really was before she started her own family. The silence in that room was deafening. Then she started sobbing. Her fiancé looked like he'd been shot. His mother started yelling. My mother fainted. My father screamed at me, called me a lunatic. Security escorted me out. I watched through the window as the wedding unraveled. Marcus's family took him away. Lily locked herself in the bridal suite. She didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When she finally called, she just said, "Why did you do that to me?" I tried to explain. She hung up. Now, my family won't speak to me. My parents told everyone. I'm mentally ill and made it up. They've sent cease and desist letters. Old friends have ghosted me. Strangers have sent me hate online. Lily's wedding is cancelled. Her relationship is over. And I am alone. But I don't regret telling her. Regret waiting so long. Maybe I shouldn't have done it at the wedding. Maybe I should have risked everything earlier. Maybe I am the a-hole for the timing, for the drama, for the shock. But no one else was going to tell her, and I couldn't let her walk into a new life built on a lie that had already poisoned mine, so read it. You tell me, am I the a-hole for telling my daughter the truth about who I am at her wedding? Am I the a-hole for exposing my wife's dead sister at her funeral? Let me start by saying that I never, ever wanted to be in the spotlight. I'm not the kind of person who seeks drama, attention, or confrontation. I'm the guy who sits quietly at the back of the room, pays his bills on time, remembers birthdays, and apologizes when someone else bumps into him. I believed in being the rock in people's lives, stable, trustworthy, dependable. And I believed in my wife. God, help me, I believed in her for 12 years, through everything, until the day we buried her sister, and I saw the woman I wasn't supposed to see. Let me rewind. My name is Jonah. I'm 38. I've been married to Amanda for 12 years. We met in college. She was magnetic, brilliant, a little chaotic. I was steady, nerdy, soft-spoken. She loved that about me, said I grounded her. She said a lot of things back then that I clung to like scripture. We got married young, bought a little fixer-upper, slowly built a life. Amanda was always the more social one. Everyone loved her. She had this tragic backstory too, and people just flocked to it like moths to a flame. Her parents were estranged. Her older sister, Caroline, had died when Amanda was 20. Died in a fire, she said. It was always said in that haunting, soft tone, like it physically hurt her to say the name. Caroline. Over the years, I heard bits and pieces. Caroline had been a wild child, in and out of trouble, drugs, bad relationships. Amanda would shut down whenever it came up. No photos of her in the house, just one old Polaroid Amanda kept in a box in her nightstand, like some sacred relic. I asked once if we could put it in a frame. She said, "She doesn't deserve one." I stopped asking. Fast forward a decade, Amanda's mother died suddenly of a stroke. Amanda didn't want to go to the funeral. Said they were monsters and she'd already buried her family emotionally a long time ago. I offered to go with her. She said no. I respected it. That's the kind of husband I am, was. Always supportive, even when I didn't understand. Then, a year ago, Amanda got a phone call. She came out of the bedroom pale and shaking, said it was from a cousin. Caroline was dead. I blinked. "I thought she died when you were in college?" Amanda started sobbing. Said she lied because the real story was too painful, that Caroline had actually run away after their father hit her during a fight, that she disappeared, joined a cult-like commune, got addicted to something, went off the grid. She was dead to Amanda emotionally. That's what she'd meant. But now she was really dead, found in a rundown apartment in Portland, OD'd on fentanyl, alone. I hugged her, cried with her, supported her through the whole planning process. Amanda wanted to do a proper burial. She said it was time to forgive. She wanted closure. We flew out to Portland to claim the body. There was a lot of red tape. The body was badly decomposed. The authorities had ID'd her based on fingerprints. Amanda didn't want to see her, said she couldn't handle it. I didn't push. They gave us her things. A tattered purse, a necklace, a burned photo, a few old journals. I offered to read them. Amanda said no, said she needed to do it on her own time. We held the funeral in our town. Amanda arranged everything. Beautiful casket, lilies, soft music. I gave a eulogy based on stories. Amanda had told me. It was painful, moving, cathartic. Amanda cried like I'd never seen her cry before. People came out of the woodwork. Former teachers, a couple estranged cousins. We laid Caroline to rest. Or so I thought. That was 2 months ago. 2 nights after the funeral, I was taking out the trash. We live in a quiet neighborhood, lots of woods. As I passed the end of our driveway, I saw someone standing near the tree line. A woman, pale, thin, hoodie up. I froze. "Hey!" I called out. She bolted. I told Amanda. She said it was probably a neighbor, but something in her face changed, tightened. I didn't press. Then I started seeing the woman again, always from a distance. Once across the street, once peeking into our backyard, always gone before I could get a good look. I set up cameras. Nothing. Motion sensors. Nothing. I started to feel insane. Then I found the journal. Amanda had hidden it in the garage. I only found it because I was looking for our old camping gear. It was moldy, cracked, but legible. On the first page, "To Amanda, if you ever come looking," I read it. It wasn't just a diary. It was a confession. Caroline hadn't run away. She'd been thrown out. After she caught their father molesting one of Amanda's friends, she confronted him. Their mother sided with him. They told her to leave and never come back. Amanda, according to Caroline, had known and stayed silent. Page after page was rage, pain, desperation. Caroline described being homeless, being trafficked, losing a child, finding herself in recovery, getting clean, rebuilding, trying to contact Amanda multiple times, all ignored, and then something wild. Caroline had listed her recovery sponsor's number. The journal was dated just a few months before her supposed death. I called the number. The woman on the other end was quiet for a moment, then said, "Caroline's not dead." I felt the bottom drop out of my world. "What do you mean?" I said. "We just buried her." The woman laughed, bitter, hard. "Caroline's at my house, right now. She's been hiding because your wife told her. She'd ruin her life if she ever came near you. I thought I was being pranked." But she described Caroline perfectly. Then Caroline got on the phone. She was alive. She told me everything. Amanda had been in contact. Caroline had reached out. They'd met. Caroline had wanted to rebuild. Amanda refused, said her life was perfect now, that no one could ever know. The truth, that if Caroline showed up again, she'd destroy her. She even faked the death, used a Jane Doe corpse, pulled strings to ID her as Caroline, and held the funeral as a final nail in the coffin of her secret. I drove to the woman's house, saw Caroline with my own eyes. It was like seeing a ghost. She looked like Amanda, older, thinner, but undeniably her sister. She gave me more. Emails, texts, a voicemail Amanda had left the day before the funeral. "I'm sorry. This is how it has to be. You are dead. Stay that way." I confronted Amanda that night. She denied everything, screamed, sobbed, said I was being manipulated, that Caroline was lying, that she was dangerous. I showed her the emails, the texts, the voicemail. Her face went cold. She said, "I did what I had to do. I told her I was leaving." She laughed. "You think anyone will believe you over me?" So I made them believe. At Caroline's real funeral, Amanda had planned a memorial service just for us. I brought Caroline. I walked in with her, hand in hand like a bomb. The screams, the gasps, Amanda fainted. People thought it was a ghost. Then Caroline spoke, told everyone the truth, the abuse, the exile, the fake death. Amanda tried to deny it, then tried to cry, then tried to flee. Now? Amanda's being investigated for fraud. There are rumors of criminal charges. Her family has disowned her. Half. Our friends blocked me. The other half don't know what to believe. And me? I'm staying with a friend. Alone, angry, heartbroken. Caroline's alive. But we're both shells of what we used to be. Some people say I was cruel to do it that way, to humiliate Amanda in front of everyone, to make a spectacle, to traumatize our community. But I ask you, am I the a-hole for exposing my wife's dead sister at her own funeral? After I burned that letter, I felt this sick sort of satisfaction, like I'd finally taken back something that had been stolen from me, my ability to decide what parts of my life were mine. But if you think that was the end of it, it wasn't. That fire lit something inside me that I hadn't expected, a hunger for the truth. Not just about Joan, but about everything. It was like suddenly realizing your entire life had been a stage play and you wanted to know who was pulling the strings, behind the curtains. My therapist warned me that opening old wounds doesn't always bring closure. Sometimes it just invites more infection. But I didn't care. I wanted everything. It started with my sister. Rachel and I had been estranged since she went no contact. With our mom over a decade ago, I used to judge her for it. Joan had worked hard to paint Rachel as unstable, manipulative, narcissistic, all the things Joan actually was. I believed her for years. Rachel left when she was 19 and didn't look back. When I found those hidden letters from our dad, I tried calling her, but she'd changed numbers. It took me weeks to track her down through a mutual friend. When I finally did, the conversation started with a silence so heavy it felt like a physical weight. "You finally figured it out, didn't you?" she said. No greeting, no small talk. Just that. I told her everything. About the letters, the restraining order, the visit to Joan, the final conversation, the fire. Rachel was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. That's not even the worst of it. At first I thought she meant the emotional abuse, but no. Rachel had been carrying something for years, something so heavy it made her run and never come back. She told me about a man named Warren, a friend of Joan's, someone who came around a lot after Dad left. I had vague memories of him. Short, always smiling, smelled like mouthwash and cigarettes. I didn't remember much else, but Rachel did. She remembered everything, including the times he came into her room at night. She was 10, and Joan knew she let him. When Rachel told her what was happening, Joan called her a liar, then punished her for seducing a grown man. I could barely breathe. My ears were ringing. I wanted to vomit. Rachel said she tried to tell someone once, an aunt, but Joan found out and beat her so badly she couldn't sit for days. After that, she kept quiet until she turned 18, packed a bag, and left in the middle of the night. She's been in therapy ever since. I asked why she never told me. She said she didn't want to destroy what little hope I had left. You always wanted to believe she was complicated, not evil. And she was right. I did want to believe that. That maybe Joan had been damaged herself, that she didn't know better. That her cruelty came from a place of pain, not malice. But now I know. She was a monster. She didn't just neglect us, she destroyed us. I reported Warren. It was too late for prosecution, but I wanted his name on record. I don't know if he's still alive, but I hope he's rotting in a gutter somewhere. Eliza cried when I told her. She hugged me and said, "That woman doesn't deserve your grief." But grief doesn't work that way. It's not clean. It's not logical. It's messy and twisted and cruel. I grieved the mother I never had, the childhood I was denied, the safety that was never real, but it got worse. A few weeks after Joan's death, I got a call from her lawyer. She left a will, and I was in it. My first thought was, I don't want her money. But curiosity got the better of me. Eliza came with me to the reading. The lawyer, a brittle man who looked like he hadn't smiled since the 80s, read the will like he was bored out of his mind. Joan left me everything. The house, the accounts, even some personal items. It felt like a final taunt, like she was saying, "You still belong to me." Then he handed me an envelope. "She wanted you to have this personally. She instructed me not to mail it." I almost didn't open it, but I did. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in Joan's spidery cursive. "You think you know the truth, but you don't know my truth. I did what I had to do. Your father wasn't who you think he was. He ruined everything, and I protected you from him. I protected you from what you really are. You'll understand one day. What did that mean? What I really am?" I reread it a dozen times. Then I noticed the corner of the envelope was thicker than it should have been. There was something glued inside. I carefully peeled it apart and found a small, aged photograph, folded in half. It was of me as a baby, being held, not by Joan, not by my dad, but by a woman I didn't recognize. Behind her, someone had written, "Miriam, April 89. That wasn't my birth month. It was 3 months before I was born. Or so I thought. I went into full obsession mode. I started digging through Joan's old files, documents, anything I could find. I even hired a private investigator, and what we uncovered changed everything. Joan wasn't my biological mother. My real mother, Miriam, had been a friend of Joan's in the late 80s. They lived in the same building. Miriam was a single mom-to-be, young, unstable, possibly struggling. With mental illness, Joan had taken her in out of charity. Miriam gave birth to me in late January 1990. 3 weeks later, she was committed to a psychiatric facility. Joan took me, claimed I was hers. No official adoption, no paperwork, just took me. And no one stopped her. Miriam never got out. She died in 1998 in that hospital. Alone, forgotten. Joan fabricated an entire pregnancy, got fake prenatal records, changed the date on my birth certificate, raised me as her own, never told a soul. My father wasn't my father. Rachel wasn't my sister. None of it was real. I confronted the lawyer. He didn't know, or claimed not. 2. The only person who could have explained it was already dead. I was left with questions that no one could answer. Why did Joan take me? Pity? Control? Did she see a broken woman and think, I can do better? Or did she just want a clean slate after her husband left and Rachel grew too defiant? And now I look at my daughter and feel like I'm made of glass, like everything I thought is a lie. I took a DNA test, confirmed it. Joan and I share no blood, Rachel and I share none either. We're trauma siblings, not genetic ones, but I love her more than ever. Rachel and I are closer now. Trauma does that sometimes. We talk every week. She's met Eliza and my daughter. We're building something real from the wreckage. But some nights I still wake up choking on the memory of Joan's voice, the things she said, the things she did, the people she destroyed. And I wonder, if she hadn't died, would I have ever found out the truth? And if I had known sooner, would I have burned that letter, or would I have used it as kindling to burn everything she ever touched? Am I the a-hole for going no contact with my dying mother after discovering the truth about my childhood? I never thought I'd be the kind of person to say I went no contact with my mom while she was dying. Even typing that out makes me feel like scum. But things aren't always black and white, and sometimes the people who gave you life are the same ones who broke you piece by piece before you even had the words to describe what was happening. I spent years not knowing what was wrong with me. Anxiety, self-doubt, this constant need to please everyone, even strangers, and an almost pathological fear of making anyone angry. I thought that was just how I was wired, that maybe I was weak or overly sensitive. I didn't start questioning anything until I got married and had my daughter. That's when the memories started clawing their way back. My wife's name is Eliza. She's the kind of mom who wakes up early to pack organic lunches, takes our daughter to ballet, sings her to sleep even when she's dead tired. Watching her be a mom stirred something in me that I wasn't ready for. A kind of grief I couldn't place, because I realized something. I didn't remember my mother ever holding me like that. Not once. I didn't remember lullabies or kisses on the forehead. I remembered cold hands, sharp words, doors slamming. I remembered the feeling of being an inconvenience. I told Eliza one night, half drunk on wine and nostalgia, I think my mom hated being a mom. Eliza paused, looked at me carefully, and said, Do you really think that? Or do you just feel it? That sent me spiraling. I started therapy a week later. I didn't go into it expecting revelations. I just wanted to be a better dad than I had. But therapy doesn't work like that. It peels you apart slowly. And the deeper I got, the more I realized my childhood wasn't just sad, it was off. And it all centered around my mother. Her name is Joan, or was. I suppose I'll never say it again after this. Joan was beautiful and cruel. That's the best way I can describe her. The kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room, then turned on her kids the moment the door closed. My dad left when I was 5. I was always told he was a deadbeat. Ran off with a secretary. That was Joan's version of events. That he abandoned us and left her to raise 2 kids alone. But my sister and I always remembered him as kind, if distant. He'd write letters, send postcards. We never saw them. Joan said he didn't send any, that he didn't care. Fast forward to last year. I'm 35, married, a dad, settled into life. Joan calls out of the blue to say she has late-stage pancreatic cancer. She says it casually, like she's telling me the weather. They say 6 months, maybe less, so I thought I'd reach out, just like that. No warmth, no tears, no, I miss you. Just a woman on the clock, making her final rounds. I didn't know how to respond. My instinct was guilt. I offered to help, to visit, to show her my daughter, whom she'd never met. Eliza hesitated but supported me. She's always been better at forgiveness than me. The visit was weird. Joan was thin, frail, but still sharp-tongued. She barely looked at my daughter, asked if we planned to keep her hair that long like it was a character flaw, made digs at Eliza's cooking. When I brought up childhood memories, trying to connect, she waved me off. You were always dramatic, sensitive. Not like your sister. She knew how to shut up and listen. My sister, by the way, went no contact years ago. I never fully understood why until now. Joan had called her a pathological liar and said she was hysterical and ungrateful. Now I'm wondering if that was projection. After the visit, something gnawed at me. I started digging. I found an old box of photos and documents. In our attic, ones I'd taken when I moved out at 18 and never looked through. In it were letters from my dad. Dozens. All addressed to me and my sister. All unopened. All hidden. There were also postcards, court documents, a copy of a restraining order against Joan, not my father. That wasn't part of the story she told. It said she'd physically attacked him during a custody exchange. The letter from his lawyer begged the court to allow him visitation, stating that Ms. R has made repeated efforts to alienate the children from their father, including the destruction of correspondence and verbal denigration. My hands were shaking when I read it. I called my dad. We hadn't spoken in over 2 decades. He cried when I said my name, told me he never stopped thinking about us, that he tried everything. Joan had told us he never showed up for court, that he was a coward, but it was her. She had blocked him at every turn. She told the school he wasn't allowed to pick us up. She changed our numbers every year. When I asked why he stopped trying, his voice cracked. I thought maybe you didn't want to know me, that she'd turned you against me. I cried for hours after that. I confronted Joan. She didn't deny it, just stared at me and said, I did what I had to do. He would have taken you from me. When I said he had every right to see us, that we had every right to know him, she sneered and said, You should be thanking me. You turned out all right, didn't you? And that's when something in me broke. I told her I wouldn't be visiting again, that she wouldn't see her granddaughter, that she would die alone, and it was her fault. She laughed, a bitter, brittle sound. You're just like him, weak, too emotional. That was our last conversation. I went no contact, no more calls, no more visits. I didn't go to the hospice. I didn't attend the funeral. I didn't even open the last letter she sent before she died. I burned it in our fireplace without reading it, because I knew it would be one last attempt to twist the knife, to manipulate, to make herself the victim one last time. I chose peace. I chose silence. Now here's where it gets complicated. People found out, family, friends, distant relatives, even a few people who worked at the hospice. One nurse posted on Facebook, vague enough not to be sued, but clear enough to know it was about me. It's heartbreaking when people die alone, especially when they have children who could have held their hand. The comments were vicious. How could someone abandon their own mother? Whatever she did, she gave you life. You'll regret this one day. I haven't responded. I haven't defended myself. But the guilt. It creeps in late at night, when I look at my daughter and think, what if she grows up and hates me? What if I become the villain in her story too? But I also know the truth, that Joan stole a father from me, that she gaslit me for decades, that she made me believe I was broken just so she could feel whole, that she poisoned every relationship I could have had because she couldn't stand the idea of not being in control. I'm only now learning how to love without fear, how to accept kindness without suspicion, how to be vulnerable without bracing for ridicule, and I'm doing it because I finally walked away. So here I am, the son who didn't say goodbye, the one who let his dying mother choke on her own bitterness, the one who lit her last words on fire. Am I the a-hole? Part 2, the aftermath. When the lies started breeding, new lies after I dropped the divorce papers and filed the restraining order, everything moved fast. Too fast for my brain to keep up, honestly. I was still trying to process the fact that the woman I'd slept beside for 7 years, who once sobbed in my arms about losing a pregnancy, had turned out to be this calculated. I kept asking myself, was any of it ever real? Were those quiet mornings together, her head on my chest while we listened to the rain, just part of some long con? Or did something break in her along the way? I wish I could say that. After I cut ties, I felt free, but the truth was I felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left a shell of a man walking around in his own skin. And then it got worse. About a week after filing for divorce, I started receiving messages from people I hadn't talked to in years. College friends, old coworkers, even my cousin in Nevada, all of them asking some variation of, "Hey man, everything okay? Just saw something about you on Facebook." My stomach dropped. I had deleted my Facebook years ago, but I had a bad feeling and made a burner to check what was going around. And there it was, Melissa's public post. A long, meticulously written letter starting with, "I never wanted to do this publicly, but I can't stay silent anymore." It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She claimed that she had endured years of emotional abuse, gaslighting, manipulation, and economic control, whatever the hell that meant. She implied I had forced her into therapy multiple times against her will, completely false, made her cut off friends. I asked her to spend less time with one friend who was constantly high around our dogs, and even hinted that our miscarriage had been partially my fault because I stressed her out. She painted a picture of a broken, silenced woman finally standing up for herself. It had over 9,000 shares within the first 24 hours, dozens of support comments, people rallying around her like she was Joan of Arc reincarnated. What stunned me wasn't just the boldness of the lies, it was the sheer strategy. She had turned herself into a feminist martyr, weaponizing social justice buzzwords and trauma narratives to frame herself as the survivor of a story I had no idea I was even part of. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream at every stranger clicking heart on her post. But I stayed silent, at least publicly. Privately, I was documenting everything. My lawyer and I filed a cease and desist, but the damage was done. HR at 2. My job had to reopen the investigation. Again. Even though they'd already cleared me, Melissa's post had triggered enough backlash that my company was forced to reassess the optics. Some clients pulled out of projects I was managing. I was offered voluntary leave again, a sanitized way of saying, go home until this blows over. Then came a knock at my door that turned my stomach into knots. A woman, late 30s, exhausted eyes, stood on my porch holding a manila envelope. "Are you him?" she asked. "The husband?" Nodded. "Yeah, who are you?" She sighed and handed me the envelope. "I'm Dee's wife, or soon-to-be ex. We need to talk." We sat on my patio and talked for almost 3 hours. Her name was Casey. And what she told me took this whole nightmare into territory I couldn't even fathom. Turns out Melissa and Dee, her affair partner, hadn't just met randomly online or through a client connection like I had assumed. They'd met in therapy, couples therapy. Our couples therapist, Dr. Lewis, the same one Melissa had insisted we see after her miscarriage to work on communication. I'd liked Dr. Lewis, trusted him. Melissa had recommended him through a friend. That friend was Casey. Melissa had befriended Casey through a Facebook miscarriage support group. They bonded over trauma. Casey recommended Dr. Lewis. Melissa took me there. But here's the kicker. Melissa started booking solo appointments with Dr. Lewis too, sometimes under the pretense of processing alone. What she was actually doing? Using the appointments to manipulate him. But not just manipulate, seduce. Dr. Lewis was Dee. Let that sink in. Our therapist. The one who had coached us through the darkest time of our marriage. The one I confessed my fears to, my doubts, my guilt. He had been sleeping with my wife, all while billing me $175 per session. The man who sat across from me with his notebook, nodding empathetically as I said, "I feel like I'm losing her," was the one taking her away. I almost blacked out from rage. Casey showed me everything. Texts, emails, copies of his journal entries which she had found after filing for divorce. One entry read, "M, Melissa, is lightning in a bottle. She sees through him. She sees through all of them. She deserves to be free." He'd written about me, referred to me as the convenient husband and a stifling force of suburban mediocrity. It was like reading a manifesto from a cult leader who had convinced himself he was rescuing a damsel from her dragon. Casey and I sat in stunned silence after going through the folder. Then she said, "He didn't just want your wife, he wanted your life, your house, your stability, your place." That was when it all clicked. Melissa had never planned to just cheat. She wanted to replace me, paint me as an abuser, ruin my reputation, and waltz into my life with a new man who saved her. And it almost worked. Almost. I told my lawyer everything. We filed a malpractice complaint against Dr. Lewis, filed a report with the state board. Casey did the same. Now a legal storm was brewing that made everything before feel like child's play. Meanwhile, Melissa tried to play the victim still, now claiming that Dr. Lewis manipulated her too, that she was vulnerable, that she'd been coerced, that she never wanted to hurt anyone. I didn't believe her for a second. Then, I found out she was pregnant. She posted an ultrasound to her alt account, captioned, "Miracles come when you least expect them." I felt my breath stop. My mind went blank. After everything, she was having a child. Was it his? Was it someone else's? Was she trying to win sympathy? I didn't know. I still don't. But the sheer audacity broke something in me. I went from being heartbroken to being furious. Because now there was a potential child being pulled into this web of lies, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate another life like she tried to manipulate mine. So I exposed everything. I made my own post. Cold, clinical, documented. No insults, just facts, screenshots, statements, a timeline. I didn't add commentary, I didn't need to. I let her words and images speak for themselves, and when people saw it, the tide shifted. Some of the same commenters who had praised her began deleting their comments. Her supporters went quiet, and a few even apologized to me, in private. Of course Melissa's parents reached out again, apologized for doubting me, said they'd been duped too. I didn't respond. I couldn't. It was too late, so here I am now. The divorce is still ongoing. The malpractice suit is pending. My job is still on thin ice because public controversy, even if I've been cleared. I'm in therapy myself. Real therapy this. Time, and I'm trying to rebuild. But every time I close my eyes, I see her smile. That smile she gave me when we first met. That smile I thought was love. And I realize now, it was never love. It was strategy, performance, control. And yet, despite everything, I still wonder, am I the a-hole for fighting back? For exposing her? For not taking the high road and disappearing quietly like a good little broken man? Because I didn't just survive. I burned her narrative to the ground, and I'm still not sure what that makes me. Am I the a-hole for exposing my wife's secret second life after she tried to frame me as an abuser? I honestly don't know how to even begin this. I feel like my entire life has imploded over the last few months, and I'm still sifting through the debris trying to figure out where the truth ends and the lies begin. My name doesn't matter. Let's just say I'm a 37-year-old guy, and until recently, I thought I had a fairly normal life. Good job in IT, nice house in the suburbs, 2 dogs, and a beautiful wife named Melissa, 35F. We'd been married for 7 years, or at least, I thought we were happily married. Maybe I was naive, or maybe I just didn't want to see what was right in front of me. Melissa worked part-time as a graphic designer and mostly from home. She'd been freelance since the pandemic and liked the flexibility. We split chores pretty evenly. No kids, though we had tried early in the marriage and had one miscarriage that really hit her hard. After that, she said she didn't want to go through that again, and I respected her choice. I thought we were doing okay. Not perfect, but good. We had the occasional argument about money or time spent with family, but nothing outrageous. So when everything came crashing down, it felt like a bomb had gone off in the middle of my reality. It started with small things. Melissa got weirdly distant around March of this year, less affectionate, less interested in sex. When I asked if something was wrong, she always said she was just stressed from work or tired. Fair enough, we all get stressed. But then she started going out more. "Client meetings," she said. Then those turned into overnights. I didn't press her. I trusted her. That's the part that kills me. I trusted her. I didn't go snooping through her phone or anything, but I started to get a gut feeling. You know the kind. The quiet whisper in the back of your mind telling you something doesn't add up. Then, about 2 months ago, I came home early from work because of a stomach bug. I never told her I was coming home, just walked in around 11 a.m. The house was weirdly quiet. She wasn't in her home office. Her laptop was open on the dining room table, and I saw she had some kind of messaging app running, something I didn't recognize. I didn't even get a chance to read anything because she walked in through the front door while I was still standing there. She froze, then gave me this forced smile and said she'd just gone for a walk, except she was wearing a blouse and heels. I asked her where she really was, and she got defensive fast, said I was being controlling, paranoid, that I needed to check my insecurities. I dropped it, but the seed had been planted. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. So I did what I'd promised myself I wouldn't do. I checked her phone the next time she left it unattended. That's when everything started unraveling. Turns out the app was for encrypted messaging. She'd been chatting with a guy named D. Very explicit stuff. Talking about meeting up, what she'd wear for him, things she'd never said to me in 7 years of marriage. But it got worse. She'd been sending him pictures. Some I recognized, selfies from the bathroom mirror. But others were in hotel rooms, lingerie I'd never seen before. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I took screenshots, every single one. I didn't confront her right away. I was in shock. I needed to process. I started digging deeper, checked our credit card statements, tracked her location history through shared Google data, the works. I found hotel bookings, ride shares to addresses I didn't recognize, expenses labeled client lunch that were actually two-person dinners at expensive restaurants. The most mind-blowing part, she was living a second life. She had a separate social media account under a different name, a whole persona. On that account, she presented herself as single. She even had photos with D where she called him Abba her rock. I didn't exist, not even as a distant mention. I decided to get legal advice. I didn't want to go nuclear immediately, but I wanted to be prepared. My lawyer said if I had proof and if I could demonstrate financial deceit, I could protect myself in a divorce. So I started collecting, backed up everything. I played it cool at home, pretended not to know, slept next to her like everything was fine while she texted her side piece under the covers. It was like living with a stranger. Then came the twist I didn't expect. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from my boss. He said HR had received an anonymous tip accusing me of domestic abuse, that I'd been violent at home, emotionally manipulative, controlling. HR was taking it seriously, and I was put on administrative leave pending an investigation. I was floored. I knew where this was coming from, but I didn't want to believe she'd go that far. But then the police came to our house, not to arrest me, thank God, but to follow up on a wellness report. Someone had reported screaming, banging, and suspected physical abuse. Melissa played the victim beautifully. Teary-eyed, quiet, shaking slightly, said she didn't want to press charges, but just wanted it documented. I was speechless. I hadn't laid a finger on her. Never in our entire relationship, but in that moment I saw the full extent of what she was capable of. This wasn't just an affair. She was laying the groundwork to destroy me. I knew I had to act. I called my lawyer again and we went full scorched earth, filed for divorce the next day, petitioned for a temporary restraining order and requested access to her alternate social media accounts as part of discovery. I presented everything I had, messages, screenshots, financial records. It wasn't just infidelity. It was premeditated, deception, false accusations, and a calculated effort to ruin my career and reputation. Then I did something petty, maybe too petty, but I was angry. I sent a package to her parents, included printouts of the messages, the hotel receipts, the photos with D. Her dad is a retired pastor, her mom's a school teacher, very old school values. They thought I was their golden son-in-law. I included a note that said, "Since your daughter has decided to destroy my life, I figured you deserve to know who she really is." It was cruel, I know, but I was done being the punching bag. The fallout was nuclear. Her parents disowned her. D turned out to be married with 2 kids. His wife found out and filed for divorce, naming Melissa in the proceedings. Melissa lost several clients who had seen her alt social media account and didn't like her ethics, and now she's living with a friend while everything burns around her. Meanwhile, I've been cleared by HR and reinstated. My boss even apologized privately, said he hoped I was okay. My lawyer says I'm in a strong position to get the house, the dogs, and a fair settlement, especially since Melissa may face charges for filing a false police report. Here's where the dilemma kicks in. My friends say I went too far, especially by involving her parents and effectively ruining her life. They say I should have just divorced her and walked away. That revenge makes me no better than her. I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am the a-hole for going scorched earth instead of taking the high road, but after she tried to frame me as an abuser and almost cost me my job, I felt like I didn't have a choice. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole?